Season 9 has finally arrived, and with it we've got some much needed adjustments to the sandbox. In today's video, I'm going to go over all the weapon, gadget, and specialization adjustments so that you are well informed and know exactly what to bring into the arena. With that being said, let's stop wasting any more time and jump straight into it. Starting with the balance changes, they've added aim snapping for the following weapons on controller: the 50 caliber Akimbos, BFR Titan, CB01 repeater, Cerberus 12 gauge, KS23, M26 Matter, Model 1887, the revolver, recurve bow, SA1216, and SR84. They increased the cooldown on aim snapping from 0.5 to 0.7 seconds, added a 1.5 second cooldown for aim snapping with sniper rifles, and added a 1 second cooldown for aim snapping with shotguns, revolvers, and grenade launchers. So now aim snapping scales with distance, meaning it no longer gives a stronger effect at longer ranges. The dev note here states that this change to aim snapping at distance allows us to reduce the effectiveness of long-range weapons at longer ranges, more than we previously could. Previously, snapping made longer range headshots a little too easy, but was constrained by how snapping worked at closer ranges. With this change, they should require more aim for the player. So as you all know, I'm not a controller main, but I do dabble in a little bit of controller when I'm traveling with my laptop, and from what I can tell, aim snapping is quite powerful on controller, but I didn't know it was potent enough to need some type of adjustment. Let me know what you controller mains think down below. I'm curious to hear. So next we have gadget changes, starting with the breach charge receiving a decreased cooldown from 30 to 20 seconds. Next we have the dome shield, added the ability for dome shields to block the winch claw. The dev note here states that the winch claw has been dominating the heavy meta, and this adjustment is an effort to offer some more counterplay. And as a winch main, I agree, it does need an adjustment. It is way too powerful and essentially a free kill. Next we have the frag grenade, receiving an increased outer radius from 5 to 5.5 meters. As well as an increase to max damage radius from 2.5 to 2.75 meters. The dev note here states that the frag grenade is a little underpowered, although it still sees very high usage and is reasonably effective. As a result, we're only adjusting its power slightly to see how it impacts things. Up next, we have the gas grenade, decreased cooldown from 30 to 24 seconds. That's a great change here, and honestly a really big one when it comes to stalling. I think you're going to see a lot more players use this. Moving on to the gateway, decreasing its max range from 70 to 50 meters. Ooh, that is a really huge nerf. The dev note here states that the gateway has become a little too effective at allowing very long and very fast rotations by teams, cannibalizing the value of items like zipline too much. And yeah, I can definitely see where they're coming from. It allows the teams to not only protect their cash out, but quickly go to the next one and steal it, which can be pretty oppressive if used by the right team comp. The glitch grenade, getting a decrease to the ammo count from 2 to 1. As well as a decreased cooldown from 20 seconds to 12 seconds. The dev note here states that this change is to require players to be more accurate with their glitch grenade usage to get a payoff from it, rather than having an immediately available second grenade to cover up the misses. The shorter cooldown is there to ensure a miss isn't overly punishing. And I do agree with that. The glitch grenade spam is a little bit ridiculous, and it was fine in previous seasons because, let's face it, the light didn't have a lot of team utility before the gateway and the H+ infuser. But now both those gadgets are added, the light has become very effective in team play. And this is a great change to somewhat bring it back in line. Moving on to goo, increase the explosive damage multiplier versus goo from 2.0 to 2.25. The dev note here states that goo has become highly effective in the current meta, and we want to offer some more effective counterplays to it. This change is to help explosive items remove goo slightly faster. I think this is an amazing change, because it gives more counterplay against goo besides fire to remove it as an obstacle. Up next, the pyro grenade. Decrease cooldown from 30 seconds to 24 seconds. Even though that doesn't seem like a lot, it's a really big change considering you're playing a game mode where every second matters, especially when it comes to stealing or defending a cash out. The Pyro Mine decreased explosive damage from 80 to 55. The dev note here states that the Pyro Mine cannibalizes the role of the explosive mine a little bit too much. This adjustment should address that. Let's just hope that the damage over time is not affected with this change. The Thermal Bore has received a buff in the form of a decreased fuse time from 2.5 to 1.75 seconds, decreased cooldown from 45 seconds to 35 seconds, and decreased the amount of lingering smoke, making it easier to see after it detonates. That is a massive buff, but I don't know if it's enough to make it like choose over meta gadgets such as Gateway, H+ Infuser, Vanishing Bomb, or the Glitch Grenade. But I guess only time will tell, and yeah, I look forward to seeing a little bit of shakeup in the sandbox. The RPG has received an increase in damage from 100 to 110. The dev note here states that this adjustment is mostly targeted at improving the RPG's effectiveness against goo, without having a significant impact on the player versus player combat. Up next, we have specializations. Starting with the Mesh Shield, getting an increase to its max health from 750 to 850, added the ability for Dome Shields to block the Winch Claw, finally. The dev note here states that the Winch Claw has been dominating the heavy meta for a while now, so this adjustment should offer some more counterplay to it. It also should increase the viability of the Mesh Shield. The Winch Claw. We all knew this was coming. They decreased the max stun duration from 0.65 seconds to 0.5 seconds. Decreased the minimum stun duration from 0.35 seconds to 0.2 seconds. They also added a functionality where if the clawed victim is far away from the initial point of collision, the Winch Claw will break. This addresses an issue where the Winch Claw could sometimes appear to grab players around walls. Also, the Winch Claw now retracts as soon as it hits an object it can't latch onto, reducing the amount of time spent lingering in the air. Great changes all around, definitely needed the adjustment to bring it back in line with the other specializations. And next we have the weapons. Starting with the 93R, they decreased the damage from 26 to 24, decreased the damage fall off start range from 32 meters to 30 meters, decreased the damage fall off end range from 40 meters to 37.5 meters, and increased the damage fall off multiplier at max range from 40 to 50%, meaning it does slightly more damage at long range. The dev note here states that for the last season, the 93R has outperformed the second and third place weapons on damage and eliminations per round by almost 10%. That is definitely above the acceptable range. These changes are made to bring it in line with the other two weapons. And I do agree with this. The 93R had way too much range and had incredible versatility that made it an outlier when compared to other meta weapons in the class. Next, the BFR Titan. Decrease environmental damage from 130 to 95. Decrease the fire rate from 85 RPM to 82 RPM. The dev note here states that the BFR is the very definition of a love it or hate it weapon, where its top end performance is very good, but where its parameters put it very close to feeling clunky and ineffective to use. As a result, it makes this weapon quite hard to balance. We want to give it a fair power level without making it feel awkward to use. We hope the RPM change here brings it to the right place, but we'll continue to monitor how it performs. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know how lowering the RPM is going to make it feel less clunky, but maybe they know something that I don't. The Dual Blades has received a buff by increasing the damage of the third attack in the attack sequence from 65 to 100. Oh, that's pretty big. The dev note here states that we feel that the Dual Blades full attack combo hasn't been offering the payoff it deserves. This adjustment should address that. Next, the KS-23 receiving its 100th buff. Just joking. But they decreased the bullet dispersion across all stances when aiming down sights by approximately 30%, making the weapon more precise. The Lewis gun received an increase to damage from 22 to 23. The dev note here states that both heavy LMGs have been somewhat ineffective compared to other options available to heavy. This slight nudge aims to push the Lewis gun towards greater viability. And although 1 damage doesn't seem like a lot, for weapons like the M60 and Lewis gun, it's quite impactful, so I look forward to using it, and hopefully we'll see these weapons have an uptick in usage. Next, the minigun, receiving a decrease in bullet dispersion slightly when crouching or standing still and aiming down sights, making the weapon more precise. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really think the minigun needed a buff, but yeah, I mean, it's welcome, I guess. The dev note here states that seasoned players are already able to get solid performances out of the minigun, but we've noticed some casual players can sometimes struggle with it. This change is an attempt to bridge that gap, making the minigun slightly easier to use, hopefully without buffing its top end power too much. So I appreciate what they're trying to do, but a lot of weapons are very powerful if the player decides to take the time to learn how to use the weapon. The repeater being one of those weapons. If you took about a week to learn how to use the weapon, you would see a significant increase in your performance with it. I just hope the devs don't think that a weapon is weak to use just because it's not used a lot. Some weapons are extremely powerful and is meta in the right hands, depending on how much time the user wants to put into it. Next we have the M60. Decrease the amount of vertical recoil during the first 8 bullets of the firing sequence, making the M60 slightly easier to control. They slightly increase the amount of vertical recoil after the 30th bullet in the firing sequence, making the M60 slightly harder to control during sustained fire. Next, the Model 1887. They decreased the tactical reload intro animation duration from 2.2 seconds to 1.5 seconds, meaning the weapon reloads faster. The dev note here states that we know that some of the model's reload animations have been causing frustration for the players. We're not done with the model yet. It's one of a number of guns that would benefit from a reload checkpoint system, and it's still our intent to introduce a system like that sometime in the next year. I'm going to tell you from experience, the model felt phenomenal to use in the playtest, and I'm really looking forward to using it. Alright, the last but certainly not least, the V9S. I used this gun in the closed beta as well as the first season, and it was one of my favorite guns until they decided to neuter the range. So let's see what they did to it. They increased the damage fall off start range from 10 to 15 meters, and it increased the damage fall off end range from 15 to 25 meters, and increased the damage fall off multiplier at max range from 62 to 65%, meaning it does slightly more damage at long range. And that pretty much fixes my grievances with it. You're gonna see me using this weapon a lot this season, because this weapon was my preferred choice when I first started playing the finals, and I can't wait to start maining it again. Alright, we're going to wrap things up with game modes. The cash out mode, including ranked tournaments. They've introduced a double jeopardy mechanic. If a team doubles a cash out, i.e. puts a second cash box into an already active cash out station, if that team does not own the cash out station at the point the cash out concludes, they will lose 50% of their cash total. The dev note here says that this is a brand new mechanic aimed at reducing the rate of doubling cash boxes in cash out and ranked tournaments, something many players consider to be aimed specifically at preventing the second place team from progressing to the next round of the tournament. So this is meant to reduce griefing, which is very prevalent in higher elo lobbies, really hurting the integrity of the final round, giving the leading team the possibility of steamrolling their final round. So they continue to say, we want doubling to be a part of the many viable strategies that teams can use to help win the game or stage an epic comeback. Double jeopardy allows us to keep the epic comebacks and clutch plays that doubling offers, especially for third and fourth place. If a first place team wants to double a cash box now, they're putting their own lead on the line to the tune of 50% of their cash. Oh my god, that's a lot. This is a considerable change to the game, so as always we'll monitor how it plays in the wild, and we'll keep an eye on the player feedback following its launch. Moving on to ranked tournaments, cash boxes will no longer despawn when overtime begins, as they previously did. The dev note here states that with the addition of double jeopardy, this mechanic is less warranted now. This change also brings ranked tournaments back in line with regular cash out. Alright, that's an interesting change. Next we have World Tour getting renamed to Cash Out. The dev note here states that World Tour being moved to be a wrapper for a wider game covering all modes, we've named the old World Tour tournaments to Cash Out, which makes sense. And lastly, we have progression systems. Ranked tournaments receive an increase to the overall accuracy of rank score calculations, RS, which will result in slightly smaller RS changes from match to match. Rebalanced RS calculations to make first round losses in tournaments less extreme, especially for highly seeded teams. The dev note here states that when digging into the data from recent seasons, we were able to confirm the general feedback that being a highly seeded team in a match, but facing a first round elimination could result in RS losses that might take a full tournament win to earn back. This was especially common around the silver and gold ranking tiers. In the most extreme cases, albeit somewhat uncommon, we saw that the first round loss could require 6 rounds won to recoup the RS. This change should alleviate those extreme cases. I think this is a great change and is in the right direction. But I really hope some proactive measures are taken against Smurfs, because they are genuinely ruining the ranked experience and are more times than not responsible for tanking scores in those higher elo lobbies. That just about wraps up all the weapon, gadget, and specialization changes. Let me know in the comments what you think, if you think any weapons were left out, or what changes you're the most excited for. So if you found this video informative, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel, and also subscribe for all things the finals. Peace and love, guys, and I'll see you in the arena.